All right. Happy Friday, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the fifth installment of our Finance Fridays webinar series. My name is Rimjam Agrawal, and I am the program manager at Illinois Green Alliance, managing the programs and partnerships for the Building Energy Hub. The webinar series is a project of the Building Energy Hub and aims to demystify the financial tools that building professionals can use to fund decarbonization and energy efficiency projects. Today, we're joined by Claire Brinley and Maria Colangelo from the Illinois Finance Authority/Climate Bank, who will be diving into the Energy Efficiency Revolving Loan Fund, or Bridge Loan Program. But before we dive in, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Building Energy Hub. Next slide, please. So the Building Energy Hub is a project hosted by Illinois Green Alliance, but our work is supported by a network of incredible partners, including Elevate, the Illinois Climate Bank, the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program, and the City of Chicago. We're also supported by funding from the U.S. Department of Energy's Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy under the Building Technology Office. We're also working with generous support from ComEd and Builders Initiative. Next slide, please. The Hub is Illinois' trusted resource center for building professionals seeking practical solutions to improve building performance. We created the Hub and programs like this Finance Friday series and other education programs to help commercial and multifamily building owners, developers, operators, property managers, contractors, and municipal and community partners with planning, financing, and implementing building retrofits within Illinois. Crucially, for today's conversation, one of our priorities is to streamline access to financial resources. And now, let me introduce today's presenters. We're honored to be joined by two experts from the Illinois Finance Authority, which administers the Energy Efficiency Revolving Loan Fund. Maria Colangelo, Senior Vice President at the Illinois Climate Bank, and Claire Brinley, Program Manager at the Climate Bank. They'll walk us through how the EE RLF works, who qualifies, how to apply, and how this program fits into the broader energy efficiency landscape in Illinois. Audience members, please feel free to drop any and all questions into the chat or use the Q&A feature on Zoom during the presentation. We'll have time at the end of the presentation for a Q&A session, and I'll be recording these questions in the order that they come in. We'll also be sharing a recording of this session after the session ends, as well as a slide deck in a follow-up email. And now I'll turn it over to Claire and Maria.
Thanks, Rimjam. As she said, my name is Claire Brinley. I am the program manager with the Illinois Finance Authority/Climate Bank. I'm also joined here today with Maria Colangelo, the Senior Vice President of Lending at the Climate Bank as well. So today we're going to be talking about our Energy Efficiency Revolving Loan Fund Bridge Loan product, which is funded by a grant from the Department of Energy. Pre-applications for this program are open and available on our website. So if after the presentation today you think you have a project that might be eligible, please feel free to fill out that pre-application and someone from our team will get in contact with you. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the Climate Bank. If you're not already familiar with us, the Illinois Finance Authority was named the official climate bank of the state of Illinois under the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, or CEJA, back in 2021. The goal of the Climate Bank, among other things, I think is summed up really well in this third bullet point here. The goal is to accelerate the investment of private capital into clean energy projects in a manner that's reflective of the geographic, racial, ethnic, gender, and income level diversity of the state. So next slide, please. Since this designation, the Illinois Finance Authority has gone out and won over $450 million in federal awards on behalf of the state of Illinois for clean energy projects. And just one of these awards is the Energy Efficiency Revolving Loan Fund, which is what this Finance Friday is about. So the Energy Efficiency Revolving Loan Fund, or EE RLF, as I'll probably be saying throughout the presentation, is a formula funding opportunity. The Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, IEPA, was awarded about $15.9 million for this opportunity, and about $14.3 million was allocated to the Illinois Climate Bank to establish a revolving loan fund. These EE RLF loans are specifically designed to help finance building energy efficiency projects in Illinois. So the loan product that we have decided to offer with this money is a bridge loan product. Next slide, please. for energy efficiency projects. So as the Climate Bank was first getting started, we hosted a lot of stakeholder engagement sessions to try to figure out where financing gaps for energy efficiency were and where Climate Bank financing could be most helpful. And one thing that we heard again and again was that there are a lot of financing resources available in Illinois, both at the state level and federally, but there can be this lag because a lot of incentives tend to come in after a project is completed, but it can be really hard to find that upfront capital to get the project started in the first place. So the Climate Bank's intention with this energy efficiency revolving loan fund is to offer a bridge loan, which will provide that upfront capital for energy efficiency projects. These loans are intended to be short-term and then are paid back once you receive those other incentives that come in at the end at project completion. So the incentives that the bridge loan will cover are the federal refundable tax credits or direct pay, which we'll have an expert talking about later in this webinar. If you're not super familiar with the IRA tax credits or direct pay, don't worry, you're about to get a 101. If your project is approved for the Illinois Solar for All program, you can also finance those project incentives using this bridge loan. But as I'll mention on the next slide, unfortunately, single-family residential buildings are not eligible. So this would have to be an Illinois Solar for All multifamily project or fall into the public nonprofit Illinois Solar for All category. Next slide, please. Okay, so what kind of projects are eligible for this program? Well, so first of all, there needs to be a building, since these are building energy efficiency projects. In particular, we're looking for commercial buildings that are owned by public entities, nonprofits, or private entities, or multifamily buildings that have 5 or more units. Unfortunately, single-family residential projects are not eligible for our program. In particular, our target audience is local governments, and buildings that could apply might be public libraries, school district buildings, wastewater treatment facilities, other government buildings, but we're also happy to accept applications from nonprofits that own commercial or multifamily buildings, or private entities as well, or the developers of these buildings, just as long as the project meets both the energy efficiency requirements for this program and that it's eligible for tax credit provisions under the Inflation Reduction Act. So in order to receive this specific bridge loan, your project must be eligible to receive direct pay or tax credits or Illinois Solar for All project incentives or both, since those are the incentives that this loan is bridging. Next slide, please. Since this is an energy efficiency revolving loan fund, any project needs to have an aspect of energy efficiency in order to be eligible. So the project has to address one of these 3 things: either the energy efficiency of the building or facility, the physical comfort of the building or facility occupants, or the quality of air in the building or facility. So based on these terms, a geothermal project would be eligible. Energy storage is considered an energy efficiency measure. So if you have a solar project that is coupled with energy storage or energy efficiency, that is eligible. But solar projects on their own, or adding electric vehicle charging stations on their own, those sorts of improvements don't impact the efficiency of the building or the physical comfort or the quality of air, so they're not eligible. So if you want to do a solar project, you need to make sure that you're coupling it with energy storage or load management system or something else that improves the energy efficiency of the building. In addition, every project needs to have been recommended by a qualifying energy audit. So that means that if your project does include solar or a battery backup system, those items need to have been recommended by an auditor. IFA has been working on some audit documents that sort of clarify some of these requirements and give what we hope are going to be easy step-by-step instructions on how to fulfill this audit requirement. And so if you want to learn more about this, please feel free to reach out to me and Maria after the webinar, and I can send that document along to you. Hopefully at some point, we'll also be hosting a separate webinar on this topic with the assistance of the Hub to discuss the energy audit requirements in more detail. I also just want to note that there are a lot of resources out there that provide free or low-cost energy audits, so it's always good to check with your utility first to see if you can get a free audit from them. But now I would like to turn it over to my colleague, Maria Colangelo, who's going to discuss the terms of the bridge loan in more detail. And next slide, please.
Thanks, Claire. Good afternoon, everyone. So our loan amounts range from $50,000 to $1 million, and the term will be up to 24 months. Our interest rate is going to be below market at 6% or less. Fees are capped. Origination fees are capped at 2%. As far as the payments, they're going to not be monthly payments, but the interest will be due at the time of the final payment of principal on the bridge loan or at maturity, whichever occurs first. And the principal balance will be due within 30 days of receipt of any refundable tax credit payment or Illinois Solar for All project incentive for the amount received, or at maturity, again, whichever occurs first. In certain situations, we can look at funding, participating with a lender, an approved lender, to provide additional financing for project costs to be repaid with energy savings, Illinois Shine Solar Renewable Energy Credits, or other incentives that are not included in our bridge loan. Also, all eligible projects must comply with labor, wage, and benefit requirements and reporting under the Davis-Bacon Act. I now want to introduce Joe Marchese from Baker Tilly, our expert on credits. Hi, Joe.
Thanks, Maria. Appreciate it. Next slide. Hi, everyone. I'm Joe from Baker Tilly. Here to talk a little bit about energy tax credits that are currently available for some of these projects applicable to the EE RLF. We're going to focus today on tax credits eligible under Code Section 48E and 45Y. This is what you typically think of when you think of the investment tax credit, if that word has been floating around for the last couple of years. So let's talk about a few eligible energy sources. The tax credit is technology neutral as of the beginning of this year. Really means that any type of energy property is eligible so long as that it is net zero greenhouse gas emissions or near zero greenhouse gas emissions. So we provided a couple examples here. Obviously, wind, solar, energy storage technologies. Think about battery energy storage, electrical, thermal, and hydrogen. Geothermal heating and cooling systems, geothermal heat pump property is eligible underneath these, underneath 48 and 48E. Hydropower, nuclear, I don't think we're getting into those as it relates to the ERLF, but they are eligible. And then there is a plethora of other technologies here that we could talk about today that so long as they are net zero greenhouse gas emissions would be eligible for a tax credit here. So if you go to the next slide here, I'm going to discuss kind of how we build up the credit value for these tax credits. So really, when you think about it, if I'm looking at the graphic on the right here, it's a 6% base credit. So that is 6% of eligible investment costs, right? So if you spent $1 million in eligible investment, you'd receive 6% of that in a tax credit as a base. This gets a 5 times multiplier if one, you comply with the prevailing wage and apprenticeship rules as laid out in the federal regulations, or if your project is less than 1 megawatt in capacity. So for a lot of these projects, we're going to see less than 1 megawatt capacity projects, you'll automatically get the 5x multiplier. That brings you up to 30% for a base tax credit rate. From there are bonus credits that your project might be eligible for. A couple that I wanted to highlight were domestic content. If your energy project uses a certain percentage, depending on the year, of domestic content that you can certify as domestic content, you get a 10% bonus credit, so that brings you up to 40%. If your project is in an eligible energy community, so this is location based, you can get an additional 10% on top, so it's 50%. And then there are additional bonus credits for low income and disadvantaged communities that you can apply for. These are actually competitively allocated that you do need to apply for, but you can get an additional 10 to 20% in bonus credit there. So that brings you up to approximately a cap of 70% of eligible investment costs that are eligible for tax credit here. The last thing that I did want to note here is there is a haircut for entities that use tax exempt funding for their tax credit. So if you're a municipality and you created a solar array and you issued a tax exempt bond for the financing of that project, we'd want to look at the haircut associated on the credit, and it's usually about 15% of the credit value. Next slide, please. So a couple key provisions underneath the Inflation Reduction Act that really drive value for these credits for the types of entities that would be applicable for the EE RLF. One, transferability. So transferability allows these a marketplace really for these tax credits to be created. An entity, a tax-paying entity that is eligible for a tax credit can transfer that tax credit to another entity, usually for about 90 cents, 92 cents on the dollar. Why this matters is if you're a solar developer or a battery developer, et cetera, that does not have a very large tax liability, you won't be able to use this credit. You can transfer it for cash to someone else and bring that value into your project. The next and best part about this act, in my opinion, is the direct pay feature. So this allows tax exempt entities, so state, local governments, nonprofits, tribes, to receive effectively a cash payment from the IRS. What you do is you file your tax credit alongside your 990T, depending on whenever you do file your return, and the IRS will issue you a payment directly for that tax credit value. This really broadened participation here and allowed tax exempt entities to receive these credits for investing in these projects. And finally, the extended usability of these tax credits, they can offset federal tax liability for 3 years retroactively backward or 22 years moving forward. So that really starts to maximize value for project owners and unlocks opportunities for developments here. Next slide, please. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about here was the timeline, right? Everyone wants to understand when I'm going to receive this credit. So we lay out a couple steps in this timeline with key dates listed along the bottom. Really, when you're in pre-construction, what you want to do is make sure that your project is eligible. You want to be secure that saying, yes, I have an eligible project, I can bank on these tax credits, et cetera. So you want to make sure that you're estimating the size of your credit, going through those calculations, reading the regulations, understanding the compliance requirements that you're going to have to adhere to throughout construction and post-construction prior to you actually building the project. When you're in construction, you want to track compliance, project compliance related to things like prevailing wage and apprenticeship, making sure that you're hitting the apprentice ratio requirements, for example, on a project, and making sure that you're not incurring any penalties associated with your project. Domestic content, similarly, You want to make sure that you're hitting all of the domestic content compliance requirements throughout construction. You also want to make sure if you are located in a low-income community and are eligible for the low-income community bonus credit, that needs to be applied for prior to the project being placed in service. So one thing to keep an eye out there for. Moving to post-construction, this is where the project has been placed in service, so the tax credit is earned in that tax year. What you'll want to do is establish the total cost basis for the project. Make sure you're classifying what are the eligible costs versus the ineligible costs associated with your project. You're going to want to pre-register. There is an IRS portal to pre-register for your tax credits. You want to make sure you're doing that with ample time for them to get back to you with their registration numbers. We've seen that takes about 4 to 8 weeks in our experience doing these. Making sure that you're drafting all the tax forms, you're reviewing this, you're filling out your required statements that are necessary to receive that tax credit, and then finally filling out your 990T to file for that credit. Now, after you've filed, what we're seeing is that there is a little bit of a wait period for the IRS to get back to you. We've seen 4 to 8 months as a hold period in between when you file and when the IRS eventually issues you a payment for direct pay entities. This ebbs and flows seemingly for no reason at the IRS, but that's really what we've seen. So making sure that you're taking that timing into consideration, as you develop the financing plan for your project. And with that, I will hand it back to Claire, I believe, to talk about eligible project types.
Thank you, Joe. All right. Yes, I did want to go through a few examples of what an eligible project might look like, given I know that this program is a little bit confusing, so just want to kind of walk everyone through. So the first example we have here is for an affordable housing nonprofit. Let's say that this nonprofit conducts an energy audit, and the energy audit recommends installing solar and including an energy storage backup system for the multifamily building that they own. The solar installation is going to be eligible for those investment tax credits that Joe just talked about. And also in this example, we're saying that the nonprofit is also approved for the Illinois Solar for All nonprofit category, so they're getting those incentives too. So the inclusion of energy storage in the project is an energy efficiency measure. So that energy efficiency component makes the project eligible for the EE RLF program. So then in this case, the nonprofit would apply for both the direct pay credits and the Illinois Solar for All project incentives. They also apply for our EE RLF program, and the Illinois Finance Authority, the Illinois Climate Bank, will give the nonprofit an upfront bridge loan in the amount that is equal to the combined cost of both those direct pay tax credits and the Solar for All incentives. And then once the nonprofit receives those incentives after project completion, they would pay back IFA's bridge loan plus any incentives. A second example, if we want to go to the next slide, is we're talking about a city's public library. So let's say that the public library conducts an energy audit that recommends upgrading their HVAC system and doing some energy efficiency lighting upgrades, as well as installing solar on their roof. The solar installation, again, is eligible for those ITC direct pay that Joe just talked about, and the HVAC/lighting upgrades are an energy efficiency component, so that makes it eligible for the EE RLF program. So again, the public library is going to apply for the direct pay credits. An IFA would provide an upfront loan, bridge loan, matching the cost of the credits that they're going to receive later. And once the public library receives that direct payment, they would pay off IFA's bridge loan. So just one thing I want to point out is you'll notice that in both of these examples, there is some element of the project that is eligible for the direct pay tax credits or the Solar for All incentives. And there's also an element that's related to energy efficiency. So just want to point that out, that there needs to be both an energy efficiency aspect and something that IFA can bridge. Go to the next slide, please. In addition to talking about eligible projects, I find it can also be helpful to talk about what is not eligible. So I mentioned earlier that solar projects, if they're not coupled with battery backup or some sort of load management system, don't have an energy efficiency component. It's great that you're getting energy from solar power, but it's not actually, reducing the amount of energy that the building is using. So that is not eligible for the EE RLF program, although you can still apply for direct pay tax credits on your own. It just wouldn't be eligible for IFA's program. Another example is if you're just doing energy efficiency upgrades. Again, that's a great project, but energy efficiency upgrades are not eligible for direct pay tax credits or Illinois Solar for All incentives. So there would be nothing for IFA to bridge there if you're just doing energy efficiency. Sometimes we get questions about community solar projects, and a lot of community solar projects are not associated with one building, or they're sort of associated with, a lot of single family residential buildings. So those typically aren't going to be eligible, but there may be some scenarios in which they are, but just want to point that out. EV charging stations are not eligible for this project. And then one other thing I do really want to highlight is new construction is not eligible. There needs to be an existing building. You need to have an audit done on that existing building in order to meet the audit requirements for the EE RLF program. So new construction won't work with that. Next slide, please. Just a few other things I want to mention. IFA is sort of hosting these ongoing working groups and we're discussing the design of this bridge loan project, which is still sort of under development. So if you're interested in being a part of these conversations, please do feel free to fill out the working group interest form, which I believe Room Jim is going to put on the chat, and it's also posted on the IFA's website. I do want to just mention again that our pre-application for this program is open and we're accepting applications. There's no deadline. And this is a new program. And so we're really looking for some folks who might be interested in doing some pilot projects to help us test some things and get this program off the ground. But even if you're not interested in doing a pilot project, if you have a project that you think might qualify, please do feel free to fill out the pre-application form. It's not a very difficult form. And because we'll be using that as a way to gauge project demand. Right now, we're thinking that a lot of the projects we're going to see for this program are going to be the solar projects that are paired with the energy storage. But maybe there's more interest in geothermal than we thought. So that's helpful for us to know what the interest is. Next slide, please. Lastly, if you're unsure about your project's eligibility for this program, the Hub is very graciously helping us screen pre-applications and answer questions. So if you do need some assistance filling out that pre-application to save both you time and the Climate Bank time, please feel free to contact the Hub help desk for that technical assistance. That's what they're there for. Next slide, please. Lastly, as always, this resource is not the only Climate Bank resource out there. There's some other financing options that might be relevant to this group as well. We have private activity bonds, the State Small Business Credit Initiative, and property assessed clean energy bonds. All of these programs are also available on the IFA website if you'd like to get more familiar with them. IFA also currently has 4 notices of funding opportunities for different grants that are available. We did some webinars about those grants earlier this week on Monday and Tuesday. The slides and the Q&A from those webinars are also available on our website. So lots of exciting Climate Bank opportunities coming out now. And then lastly, if you aren't already on our mailing list, or if you had this webinar link forwarded to you, the link to our mailing list is also going to be dropped in the chat, I think. And I will turn it back to Room Jim.
Thank you so much, Claire, Maria, and Joe, for that comprehensive review of the program and for sharing such great examples of eligible and ineligible projects. I know there was a question in the chat that was already answered. I will allow, we have a raised hand, so I'm gonna unmute Edilio Escobar so that you can ask your question. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Just taking a moment to get caught up to speed on the questions in the chat.
Yeah. We can take, Edilio, if you would like to unmute yourself, we can take your question and then I can switch to chat after that.
Mike, I'm looking at your question about the larger multifamily portfolios. We were reviewing the ability to install solar over about 40 buildings, servicing 250. The developer, is one project, but for this, would it be multiple and could it apply? I just want to clarify, those buildings are all multifamily buildings that have 5 or more units. And yes, for this program, because it's sort of done on a building by building basis, it would be multiple projects for the EE RLF program. But yes, if you have a multifamily portfolio and you're installing solar, that would apply for this program, as long as you're also installing energy storage or a load management system with that solar. And as long as they're not single family residential, they have to have 5 or more units. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you, Claire. We have one more question from Richard. Does this work in conjunction with the State Small Business Credit Initiative?
I will let Maria answer that one.
Well, we can't participate in the same uses, so it's possible that we can break up the project, break out the uses and use both programs. So it is possible. We haven't as of yet, but we would maybe we'd have to be careful because we can't overlap the uses on it. So if we're just doing the ITC credits on the bridge loan and maybe doing a participation for the rest of the project. So we'd have to figure it out. It's possible. It would just depend on the project itself and we'd have to work it through. So if you want to talk about that option, I'd be glad to go through it with you. Thanks.
Thank you, Maria. If there's any other questions, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A. Or if you raise your hand, I can unmute you.
Also just wanted to acknowledge Jonathan's comment about nonprofits considering direct pay pre-registering with the IRS as soon as possible. I think that's a really helpful note for this group. And so thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you. I don't see any more questions coming in, so I think we can close out. Thank you so much, Claire, Maria, Joe. Thank you again for doing this with us. I think it was very useful to hear from you and very comprehensive information was shared. Thank you, attendees, for joining us today. We're really glad that you were able to join us and learn about this initiative and how you can leverage it for your energy efficiency projects. I will also drop a survey in the chat. We'd love to hear what you thought of today's program, and we use your feedback to tailor future programs. So we really appreciate you filling that out. We'll be following up shortly with the recording of the webinar and the slide deck so that you can find all of the links and the relevant resources easily. And lastly, engage with the Hub. If you have questions, you can reach out to the Hub help desk. We're here to help you. If you're eligible, then we can also offer one-on-one technical assistance. Check out our updated website. We've added lots of new resources, and you can scan the QR code and find more ways to engage with us. And if you have any questions in the meantime, please feel free to reach out to Claire, Maria, or us at the Hub. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.